Alright, I did the case from chapter 9.4. It was the case with the National Football League versus McBee and Bruno's Incorporated. In this case, the parties involved, the plaintiffs were the National Football League, the NFL, and the St. Louis Football Cardinals, and the defendants were owners of several St. Louis restaurants near where the St. Louis Football Cardinals played. And so what this case was about, the Cardinals, who were a football team at this time, were one of 28 professional teams within the NFL. The member clubs managed their affairs as a group, including contracts with 3 major television contracts. The one we'll be talking about today is with CBS. Games that are not sold out within 72 hours prior to the Cardinal game are to be blacked out, and that is within a 75-mile radius of the field in which the Cardinals football team played at. The defendants picked up signals from the telecast network, which was CBS, for Cardinals games by means of satellite dish antennas. They were able to stream games that were supposed to be blacked out via satellite. And the delay between the action on the field and the broadcast by local affiliates was less than 2 seconds. All of these defendants had satellite dish antennas that enabled them to send and receive transmissions from satellite to CBS showing blackout home games. So on November 19th, 1984, the plaintiffs requested and the district court entered a temporary restraining order against the defendants, preventing them from intercepting and showing the home game scheduled for the following Sunday. And on September 13th, 1985, a permanent order was issued prohibiting the defendants from intercepting and showing plaintiffs' programming, whether in the form of a clean or dirty transmissions. So a clean transmission would be a signal transmitted to a satellite, which then sends a signal back to a network control and only displays images of the game, images from the stadium. Whereas a dirty feed or a dirty transmission is a signal transmitted to a satellite and back to a network control, but the signal displays interruptions, such as like commercial breaks and things like that. So the district court issued a preliminary injunction following the temporary restraining order for the Cardinals' last home game, and the court found that the telecasts were copyrightable under Section 102 of the Copyright Act, and that the plaintiffs were owners of the copyrights. The clean feed transmissions the defendants were receiving violated the plaintiffs' right of display and performance under Section 106 of the Copyright Act and Sections 705 of the Communications Act. The defendants challenged the district court's injunction in the Copyright Act, saying that the evidence presented by the plaintiffs was too speculative to support the issuance of a permanent order, and that the display of a blackout home games that they fall under statutory limitations of the right of a copyright owner. And these were just 2 examples of challenges that the defendants proposed to appeal the district court's injunction. So arguments on the case. The plaintiffs filed the case because they felt that the defendants violated federal copyright and communication law, showing the Cardinals' home games that had been blacked out in the St. Louis area, and also not broadcasting the game within a 75-mile radius of the Cardinals' field 72 hours prior to the game. The plaintiffs believe if those games aren't broadcasted, that it boosts team revenue and increases ticket sales. This also allows the stadium to fill, contributing to a more exciting television program. The games that the defendants were broadcasting were providing less than a 2-second delay in actions that occurred on the field. So this was a very good receiving display and game that the defendants were showing. The plaintiffs also argued that the defendants had commercial gain in which the restaurants that were broadcasting these blackout games were receiving far better business on the day that they showed a blackout game versus just a normal business day without a blackout Cardinals football game being shown. And then that the plaintiffs stated that more individuals attend the game if a televised showing is not available. So this goes back to what I talked about earlier with a full stadium. If the blackout game is not shown at a local restaurant nearby, it increases ticket sales, which provides for a full stadium, which increases the atmosphere to be more exciting in the stadium, which helps viewers be more entertained when watching the televised program. The defendants' arguments, they allege that the plaintiffs have not shown either the league or the local team will suffer the sort of irreparable injury necessary to justify a permanent order. The plaintiff's evidence, the defendants feels insufficient to make out a claim of copyright infringement, which requires factual evidence of harm. The copyright law, irreparable injury is presumed, then the exclusive rights of the holders are infringed. The Sony Corporation of America had a limitation on the Copyright Act saying that unauthorized use of copyright material, if it's for non-commercial purpose, that future harm must be demonstrated. And if unauthorized use of copyright material is for commercial purpose, likelihood of future harm must be presumed. So the defendants argued that their display of the blackout games falls into the category of non-infringing acts under Section 110(5) of the Copyright Act. So no copyright liability can be imposed for communication of a transmission covering a performance on a single apparatus used in a private home. The district court rejected this at the time of this case because satellites outnumbered TVs in homes. However, the defendants can argue that the average person who watches a blackout game at one of their restaurants has the ability to watch the same game at home. The defendants stated that their theory of the act is not how the signal was captured, but it is the infringer. If the infringer uses the commercial equipment to enhance the sound or visual quality of the performance. However, it's how the signal is captured that is as big of an issue as how the captured signal sounds and looks as well. The defendants also argued that non-infringement took place because they intercepted a clean feed, and it is not a dirty feed that was fixed under the Copyright Act, in which the plaintiffs sought copyright protection. So what were the court findings in this case? The district court rejected all the defendants' defenses and affirmed the lower court's order enjoining them from showing future games. The court also held the order that was supported by a showing of irreparable harm, since harm was presumed when a holder's rights were infringed. The court also held that the defendant's display of the game did not fall under an exception regarding common use, since satellite dishes were not commonly found in private homes, and that they infringed despite their use of a clean feed to the satellite. The court held that an injunction could issue against broadcasting future games, since defendants were on notice of the dates and the games and their blackout status in surrounding areas. So the conclusion of this course, the injunction was upheld since irreparable harm was shown to the plaintiffs and no copyright exception applied, and the defendants were on notice of the dates of future games and their blackout status.